All right. And without further ado, I have the pleasure of introducing Michaela Mora, who's another longtime supporter of the group. She is the founder of Relevant Insights and is an insights professional with a diverse background of more than 20 years experience in market research, UX research, and multicultural research in many industries like entertainment, technology, retail, automotive, travel, hospitality, restaurants, financial services, subscription services. Is there anything Michaela hasn't done? So keep those questions coming. Michaela has worked on hundreds of studies to support decisions related to new product development, customer experience improvement, pricing strategy, new market segmentation opportunities, and brand positioning. Again, a ton of experience here, so this is going to be great. So Michaela has experience from both the client side and the supplier side in both US and abroad. And before founding Relevant Insights in 2007, she managed the research team at Blockbuster Online and Match.com. All right, and Michaela is a founding member of the Multicultural Insights Collective, which conducts multicultural research and into best practices to help brands speak internationally on topics related to racial justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, and representation. On top of all of that, Michaela has written for numerous publications and also has a blog about market research that's received praise for providing useful and educational articles. She is obviously considered among the top influencer in the market research field by her peers, and we are so excited to have her here tonight and to share her wealth of knowledge with all of you. So without further delay, I'm going to give control over to Michaela to start sharing her screen, and we'll hear what she's got to say.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. When Lori reached out and asked me if I wanted to talk about market research to this group, I got really excited. And I'm glad there is so much interest in this topic. And also, I know there's a lot of confusion despite the fact that UX research and market research have common roots. So today I'll talk about what market research is, what are some of the differences from UX research that you see in practice, and how those in UX and market research roles would benefit from collaborating to really get a deep understanding of customers and potential customers. I'll then finish with some resources where you can learn more about research if you are interested. Lauren said, I have been in the market research industry for many years, doing both qualitative and quantitative research in B2C and B2B. What is now called UX research has existed for a long time without the X in the name, mainly in the qualitative research toolbox. I started doing usability testing more than 15 years ago and realized I needed to know more than research to help designers, developers, and product managers. So I got more training with the Nielsen-Norman Group, which has done a lot of work in this field. I took some of their research courses thinking I was missing something, but I realized that all the research techniques they were teaching were light versions, relabeled versions of things that I already have been exposed to in psychology and market research studies. But I found a lot of value in the classes related to design and interaction design. I'm not a designer. I don't plan to be a designer, but in understanding the design principles helps me and translate research data into actionable insights for certain types of research I do. I founded Relevant Insights in 2007 at the doorsteps of the Great Recession. And besides customer experience and user research, we get involved in product and pricing research, brand and advertising, market segmentation analysis to provide support for strategic decisions when developing and marketing new products, since all those areas are connected. We do research not only in the general population, but also among Hispanics in the US. So now that you know about me, I would like to know about you. I would like you to know who is joining, let me see here, today. I would like to, here is a QR code you can snap on your phone to open the link to this one question survey, or you can use the link on the chat. I'm not seeing the chat, so Lauren, if you can put it up there. I would like you to tell me your job function. This is a list of functions where I see people working in connection to UX and market research, but make sure to scroll down, there is a long list of categories there. I give you a few minutes. Let me check here. Where hands-on counts. Very good. A lot of design. Let me see the next one. Let's see if I can see if this. Great. It works. Yay. So we have most of the folks today are in UX design and UX research. Not a lot of market researchers. That's great. Let's see if there's anything. Okay, let me refresh. Still, so it seems like still about 60% of you are either between UX design, UX research. That's great. Perfect. Keep it coming. Okay, let me go to next. So before I launch into talking about market research, I have one more question. What words come to mind when you hear the term market research? Get your phone out again. And here's the QR code for that. Just snap with your phone, open the link, or if you can put this in the next link in the chat, that would be great. And I'll give you a few minutes to look at that one. Let's see. This one takes a little more time sometimes to update because it's a word cloud it's supposed to show. Okay, a few. Oh, great, surveys, yes. So we have 16 people there. Analysis, competitive, competitor. Surveys and analysis. Market analysis, products. Okay. Very good. Demographics. Sounds a lot of quantitative, seems to be a lot of people thinking about that. And let's one last refresh. Okay, that hasn't changed much, so that's great. That gives me your perspective. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for taking the survey. So what is it? I want to clarify that the term market research and marketing research are used interchangeably in our field. This discipline has nearly 100 years. Over the years, the nuances between market and marketing in the context of research have been lost. So market research essentially involves the identification, collection, analysis, and use of information to make business decisions. Notice I didn't mention surveys or focus groups or any particular data collection method. It starts with identifying what information we need. We then get it, analyze it, and derive insights to make business decisions. The last part is essential because Our concern is about business outcomes, which is why the Market Research Association changed its name to Insights Association a few years ago. We conduct market research to identify or solve problems that businesses may have in different areas. Market researchers are found working at in-house research teams, often called insights and analytics, customer insights, or just insights. We refer to them as corporate researchers. So they either are attached to a marketing department or are an independent group supporting other company functions. Depending on the size and the structure of the company, this may be centralized function, or they may be embedded within other groups by brand, by product, or industry vertical. There's also a whole ecosystem of research suppliers offering services across all the steps of the research process. You will find market researchers in full service agencies like ours, and agencies specializing in specific methodologies or provide supporting services like survey tools, survey programming, sample, recruitment, interview and focus group moderation, data visualization and reporting, etc. I like to connect the two main reasons for doing market research to the customer touch points along the journey, the customer journey. Many of you have probably seen a version of this diagram in customer journey maps. I want to clarify a couple of terms here. In marketing and market research, we usually are interested in the journey from non-customer to customer because we are looking at it from the business impact perspective. We don't use the term user as is common in the UX field because the term emphasizes the behavioral, some aspect of the behavioral component of a customer or non-customer and doesn't capture necessarily the needs, perceptions, and attitudes that materialize in the decision to buy or use a product. We can't forget that both profit and non-profit organizations have to make money to stay in business. So for a market researcher in a commercial organization, someone who comes to your website or an app and hasn't paid yet for your products or services, it's just a non-customer. If they are paying, we call them customers. If they stop paying, we call them lapsed customers sometimes, or go back to non-customers. In non-profit organizations, depending on what they do, even if there is no financial transaction, we also tend to call them customers. Sometimes if they're membership organizations, you call them members, as well to reflect the fact that they consume the services we offer. This terminology is important because at the end, companies need to acquire new customers and retain the customers they have. All the research we do should support decisions related to the strategy, operations, organization, and the leadership to convert non-customers to customers and stay in business. In general, we use research to discover problems at the beginning of the journey and often progress with research to test solutions. However, you might conduct problem discovery research at any stage of the journey, depending on what you already know and you don't know. Ideally, this is an iterative process. It's just a matter of budget and timing, in which you combine discovery research with problem-solving research to support business decisions. When we do market research to identify problems, we do it often to support business strategy decisions, although there is a lot of tactics research done to support tactics too, but this is the main goal. This can be related to product development, branding, investments, etc. Essentially, we are looking for opportunities through gaps and problems that are not obvious to the business now and may arise in the future. This may include research to uncover unmet market needs, to understand the path to purchase journey, to understand market segments where the business can expand, and to detect any issues with brand awareness and positioning that might lead to customer defection or preventing the company from attracting new customers. Any analysis we do to understand market characteristics, sales trends, business trends in the industry, help monitor what's going on to discover problems affecting the business or providing opportunities for growth. There is actually a growing discipline in market research concerned with foresight, trying to forecast the future and trying to identify emerging trends so businesses can adapt and pivot as the market changes. When market research for problem solving usually revolves around finding and testing solutions that ultimately support decisions about how to proceed to acquire and retain customers. This is where a lot of actually current UX research is done. The solution we look for and test are mostly connected to one or more of the 4 P's of marketing: product, price, promotion, and place. Place is just distribution or point of sale. Point of sale could be a store, a website, at any particular channel where you sell products or services. Marketing decisions are not only related to advertising and promotion, but are directly connected to decisions made in product development, pricing, and distribution. So yes, product development is part of the marketing strategy. If you are in a UX team dedicated to product development and make decisions on product design, features, navigation, and other very product-specific problems that may seem unrelated to marketing and business outcomes, I want to tell you that's not the case. Everything you do will have an impact not only on the user experience, but also what the business can claim it offers to customers, the prices it can charge, and where it can sell the products. I would argue that having the marketing perspective and business impact in mind will help you to prioritize the product feature backlog and elevate the value of the UX function. So here are examples of types of market research connected to the 4 Ps we do to support decisions in different phases of the customer journey. As you can see, there is a lot of research we can do. Some fall in what many call UX research. Some are part of what is known as traditional market research. But the fact is that UX research is a particular application of market research methodologies. To avoid fomenting division, we should think of them as research for business impact. Ideally, you should have a plan to coordinate different types of research to answer questions related to both the strategy and tactics the business can pursue. Within each of these types of research, there are many specialized research designs and techniques that include qualitative and quantitative methods. Let's talk about the research process. This is pretty typical for research projects, regardless of whether they are qualitative, quantitative, or are related to UX or not. The first step is to define the business problem in discussion with decision makers and other stakeholders. That's the super important step that unfortunately many stakeholders and internal teams don't spend enough time on. Once we define the business problem, we have to translate it into research questions to gather the needed information. Next, we go to step 2, where we select the theoretical framework or analytical model, the hypothesis that we are working on to guide our search for information. In step 2, we may need to talk to industry experts, do secondary research, do qualitative research if it is unclear what the approach should be. We are not discussing data collections yet. We are trying to select a framework to understand and analyze the data that we will collect. For example, if you're interested in determining pricing for one product or more, you can use different approaches to answer this question depending on the pricing model complexity, the number of pricing points you want to test, whether you include competitors' pricing, substitute products, etc. Next, we go to the research design step, number 3. This is where you get into the actual blueprint, the detailed procedures of how to do this. I'll talk more about that in a couple of slides. Then we go to field, collect the data. Once that's done, there usually is a phase of data processing, whether we use qualitative or quantitative data collection methods. We need to inspect the data, clean it, format it for analysis. For example, if we do surveys, we usually create cross-tabulated tables with statistical testing. We also do what we call coding of open-ended questions, in which we categorize the answers to do content analysis. If we do qualitative research, we may have transcripts that also are likely to need cleaning and thematic categorization. Once the data is ready, we dive into the analysis and the process of deriving insights, which usually goes together with the creation of reports and different deliverables. Reporting is not only about creating PowerPoint reports or dashboards or other deliverables, but also about sharing the information and insights with the stakeholders and helping to implement the insights. The last part is often the most difficult to do well, because the implementation of insights is influenced by financial, operational factors and competitors' actions, etc. I want to go a little deeper into the problem definition step, because a lack of problem definition is a common cause of failure of many market and UX research projects. Money and time are wasted if the problem is misunderstood. Serious strategic mistakes are frequently made from asking the wrong question. So let's get a clear idea of the difference between business problems and research problems. The business problem is about what the decision maker, that stakeholder, is trying to do. The focus is on the action he or she is deciding to take with the goal of delivering a business outcome. When we translate that to a research problem, we are trying to determine what information we need and how to get it. The focus is on information and insights to guide the decisions. Here are 3 examples of how to translate business problems into research problems. If the company is trying to decide what new products to develop, physical or digital, in market research terms, we need to find out what needs are not being met in our category or for certain market segments, to then generate new product ideas to meet that need. Many of you may be thinking, this is one of the things we do in UX research. But you're right. But this is nothing new. It has been part of the product research we have been doing before UX research came as a novel idea in digital companies. If, for example, the company has a product already and is trying to decide which product improvements or features they should invest in and develop, then the market research problem is about understanding customer preferences, intention to use the product feature, usage behavior, and so on. Say the company decides to invest in a particular product or product feature and wants to promote it in their marketing, advertising. They would ask, how should we position this in our advertising across marketing channels? The market research problem here is to find out which perceived benefits of this product or product feature delivers the most value to the customer, and which features support this benefit and that we can use and claim in our advertising. Assuming we agree on the problem definition and an analytical plan and an approach, we start to work on the research design. The 3 major market research design categories we can use alone or in combination. We have the exploratory designs with objectives that are mainly about discovering unknowns or seeking deeper understanding. Generally, we use qualitative research here, but surveys can be used to explore certain topics. They are called pilot surveys because we are asking questions without clear hypothesis in mind. Descriptive research designs are used, as the name indicates, to describe characteristics of markets and customers, non-customers, and in the context of a particular business problem. We may have certain hypotheses in mind that we might want to confirm or deny. Here we use surveys, observational methods, and do secondary research based on data collected from other purposes. Finally, we have the causal research designs, which are trying to infer cause and effect relationships between variables of interest. Here we set up experiments where we manipulate certain variables in relatively controlled environments and then collect data via observational methods, surveys, and sometimes even qualitative methods. In whatever research design we land on, we need to get into the specifics, which fall into one of the 6 W's. First, we remind ourselves again why we need the research, then go into specific details about what information we need for the analytical plan. Then we define who the target population of interest is. Do we need to talk to customers or non-customers? How many? What are the screening criteria to include in the study? We also need to determine when we should ask for the information from participants. For example, should we do it before, during, or after a particular event or behavior? Then, where should we contact them? At home, at the store, on the website, in the lab? And finally, in what way are we collecting the data? This is where data collection methods come in. This is, which could be surveys or observation or interviews. So data collection methods, which is the first thing that comes to mind, that's why many said surveys, is just one aspect of the research design. I briefly mentioned secondary research before. The counterpart of that one is primary research. These categories are based on the question whether the research was specifically designed to answer the problem we have in our hands. If the answer is yes, then it's primary. If the answer is no, then it's secondary. As a general rule, we should start with secondary research, which tend to be cheaper and faster, but rarely give us the specific answers we're looking for. Among the primary research data collection methods, we make a distinction between qualitative and quantitative. So we do more than surveys. Qualitative research is one type of exploratory market research methodology based on semi-structured or unstructured data methods, including in-depth interviews, focus groups, ethnographic observation, diaries, etc., and small samples. This is where a lot of UX research falls. The main outcome from qualitative research is to develop an initial understanding or a deeper understanding about something, not to recommend a final course of action, particularly for strategic business problems. Primary quantitative research is designed to collect data in more structured way that can be quantified. In market research, we use 2 basic methods to do that: surveys and observation. And observation is more collecting data and what people do. What is it people do? This is a huge methodology field, especially when it comes to surveys. Designing good surveys is difficult and goes beyond just writing questions. There's a lot of statistics involved that you have to understand to be able to design them well. There are full master's degree programs dedicated to survey methodology at many universities. Having access to surveys like SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, and other tools doesn't automatically translate into good survey design. The tools won't do it for you. Even if they offer some templates, they always need to be customized. And in this diagram, I have organized the major data collection methods. Ideally, we should use a combination of them, since they collect different types of data and provide different insights. The variation of the methods currently used in UX research also fall in one of these categories. For example, I listed here usability testing, which is mostly qualitative, and it is, even if it is unmoderated, it isn't a specific type of interview derived from what we call in-depth interviews. Other techniques used in UX, whether it is card sorting, tree testing, desirability test, the 5-second impression test, unmoderated usability testing, are also using survey methodology at its core, if they are done online or are conducted as interviews. There is a little bit of obsession with tools in UX, but I encourage those involved in UX research to think beyond tools and more in terms of methodologies to facilitate getting insights depending on the business problem. All these categorizations I have been presented so far help us in market research to find the appropriate methodology to avoid being jailed by the law of the hammer, which is a cognitive bias. This was put forward by Abraham Maslow in 1966 when he said, I suppose it is tempting if the only tool you have is a hammer to treat everything as if it were a nail. So if all you know is how to do surveys, you will use surveys for every information need. If all you do is qualitative research, you will try to use it for everything. The same is valid for UX applications of these methods. Even if you specialize in a particular methodology or tool, I recommend that you at least be aware of its limitations. If you don't know other methods or have preference for whatever you're using, I recommend collaborating with others, using research suppliers who know more than you in a particular methodology that complement your set of skills, because no method will provide all the answers. This brings me to the topic of comparing UX research and market research and throwing CX in the mix. The term UX user experience was introduced in the early 90s by one of the founders of NNG, Don Norman, when he was at Apple and his team realized that the experience of using Apple computers was weak, in his own words. And they have been insistent in the original definition of user experience as a state of mind, combining emotions and attitudes that develop as a result of user interactions with products and services, with customer support, and even marketing, which helps to set up expectations about the products and services. I heard the other day an interview with Jacob Nielsen, and he sounded a little dismayed that this people are missed the boat with this definition is not in people's mind when they're thinking about user research, because over time, in reality, UX has been narrowing its scope and has been established as a function in mostly digital first and e-commerce companies to support software development, often disconnected from marketing and the business strategy at large. This is where the CX crowd has seen an opportunity and is creating even more confusion. CX stands for customer experience, and it's grounded in customer satisfaction research, which has been always one of the disciplines in market research. And according to the CXPA, the professional association, CX is the total effect of all customer interactions across all channels to support an omni-channel strategy that has implications not only for product development, but also for operations. At this time, many in CX roles are trying to get the leadership in the company, trying to get them on board with the idea of customer centricity across all channels, and use high-level metrics that come from customer satisfaction research like the NPS to connect customer centricity to business impact. If you read both definitions closely, you realize they are saying essentially the same thing. Both are expressions of outcomes from the customer perspective, and both are grounded in market research methodologies. They are using different lenses to look at the customers. UX is very much deep in the trenches, studying micro interactions with products and marketing channels, while CX is kind of floating above, trying to get an integrated macro view of all the interactions, which is what businesses with a mature market research function like consumer packaged goods, like Procter & Gamble, the Unilevers of the world, have been doing for years. If we look at the current state of the research methods used in product development, for example, where the bulk of the UX function operates, and compare it to how market research approaches product development, you can see there is a lot of overlap despite the use of different labels. For example, if we go from product idea, benefit identification, marketing strategy, and final product usage, in market research, we use qualitative research methods across all the stages. I use the term qualitative research to include many different methods, not just user interviews. User interviews and stakeholder interviews, which are sometimes perceived as unique UX methods, are just what we call in-depth interviews, but relabeled based on the people you are interviewing. Data that comes through customer support tickets, for example, is considered secondary research, since this is not generated for research purposes, but it's very valuable data. When we are doing product research, we may see different adaptations of the same techniques depending on the products we are studying. For example, think of usability testing for a digital product, where you give the participants a task in a particular scenario and observe what they are doing, what they will do, and ask them to think out loud about what they are doing or did. The equivalent in the physical world is at-home product testing, which is pretty standard in market research. We send the product to people, ask them to use it for different purposes. Then we observe how they do it, ask them questions via interviews or surveys about the product experience, or in person if we have someone in the house watching. And nowadays we can use digital ethnography based on videos to capture experiences and feedback. Personas research is another UX adaptation that really comes from market segment profiling. The problem there is that many times persona development is just an internal opinion-based workshop exercise without actual market segmentation data behind it. Currently, in many companies that have a UX team or a market research or insights team, they tend to work in silos. Often the leadership doesn't see the connection between them. Also, because many who come to the UX field have mostly a background in designs and software development and not in research or marketing, new terminology has flourished and contribute to the idea that UX research is something new and disconnected from market research. So unfortunately, each team sometimes is researching the same thing. And even if they come from a different perspective, they are not exchanging notes and finding knowledge synergies. We are running in parallel lanes and sometimes competing with each other and even being hostile and territorial, which doesn't help the company to get a full understanding of different aspects of the customer experience in an integrated way. Once you have a product, any product decisions the UX team makes to improve the customer or user experience at a micro interaction level will continue to have an impact on all the phases of the journey, from non-customer to customer, both on the external interactions with customer as well as the internal systems, employees, resources needed to support those interactions. This clock model is just a reminder of the potential touch points that will vary from company to company, of course, in which we need integrated market research and UX research. When I was a research manager at Match.com and the director of research at Blockbuster Online before founding Relevant Insights, I had a very small team and a selected number of external research partners who will support my research operation. However, I had an integrated team. There was no division between market research and UX research. We just did research. The UX term was unheard of course, in both companies, I set up a usability lab in-house and run it with support of specialized research partners. I was involved in the research design of all the studies, including usability testing and information architecture, etc., and made sure that this research was providing complementary insights to the research we were doing related to branding and pricing and marketing strategy to help grow the business. This is a fun example. This is kind of a baby I had. At Blockbuster Online, I had the opportunity to support the launch of a very successful product based on a lot of research that you would now separate into UX and market research. But I firmly believe our success was due to research integration. We started with a large two-step market segmentation study that included a pilot survey and allowed us to identify a huge market opportunity. This was the time when Netflix was only 5 million subscribers. Not long ago, but it feels like a long ago. Once we found a couple of segments that still had unmet needs, we started to explore product ideas with both qualitative and quantitative research. We did a lot of interviews and focus groups and quantitative concept testing, not just for the product idea, but for the branding and the positioning, because those have to be coordinated across channels, since we had the online service at the stores at that time. We did a lot of prototype testing and pricing research. We did research to design the marketing collaterals, including the mailer. Also, this was the time where we sent DVDs by mail. We tested email messages, direct mail messages, and we also set up a quarterly customer satisfaction and brand health tracker that would monitor trends in our competitors. That's the CX realm nowadays. We did a lot of research with a team of 2 and a small army of research suppliers working in coordination and guided by clarity about the business outcome we needed. We were able to grow 1.5 million subscribers in 9 months. It was like giving birth, believe me. So across all the research we did, we kept the market research problem in mind, which was to gain insights about the needs, attitudes, perceptions, behaviors of current and potential customers in the context of a lot of factors that influence the decision to become a customer and stay a customer. Then we have to translate all of those insights into business implications for the strategy, for the operations, the organization, the leadership decisions. Implementation of insight is often hard, as I said, because there are other factors to consider. So the more you tailor the market research problem to the business problem, the higher the probability your research would be valuable. On that point, in my experience, the value of research, it doesn't matter if you call it UX or market research, erodes over time if it's not connected to a business problem, if it's driven by methods and tools rather than by information needs, and if you are not able to translate data into actionable insights, even if you are doing it in the context of a business problem. We all come to research with different backgrounds. So to be able to collaborate effectively, we need to have common areas of knowledge and terminology. For example, market researchers would benefit from learning about principles of visual design and interaction design, even if they don't plan to become designers or developers. At the same time, UX designers, developers, product managers would benefit from learning some of the research fundamentals so they can participate as observers and interpreters of results in more effective ways, even if they don't become researchers. In my humble opinion, if you have people in your team with deep expertise in areas like research, design, development, project management, who are at least familiar with the basics of areas from other team members, you are more likely to have a productive team that can work together, produce quality work, and is also less prone to burnout. So these are some knowledge areas I have been cultivating over the years to help support UX research and market research needs to solve business problems. I am a specialist in some, and I'm a generalist in others. If you're interested in acquiring a good foundation in research, either to become a researcher or at least being able to contribute to the research process, here is a list of known organizations in our industry that offer training, conferences, and a lot of useful content. The Insights Association is the former Market Research Association that represents both in-house researchers and research suppliers. But if you really want to geek out on survey methodology, check AAPOR. AAPOR is the American Association for Public Opinion Research. Many many academic and government institutions and large commercial market research agencies are members and do a lot of research on research to see what works. And a lot of that is presented at their conferences and webinars. They have big guiding papers they publish on their website. And in that note, I wanted to leave you with some of the books that I have found helpful in my work as a researcher. They have helped me to expand my knowledge and enable me to support UX and marketing teams. And that's what I have for you today. We still have some time. I will try to answer some of your questions. So back to you, Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michaela. And everyone, please join me in giving a virtual high five or applause to Michaela for sharing all that rich information with us. That was awesome, and a lot of good comments in the chat. So thanks everybody for being engaged. We do have some questions come through, and I think we'll see some continue to come in. But I think I'll go ahead and get started with some that came up. And one of the questions
here so I can see, because I was kind of talking blindly.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, if everyone wants to show your face, like feel free to show your camera. Good point. A question that came up a couple times, I think, is for when dealing with stakeholders that all they're used to is surveys, and if all partners know our surveys, they'll continue to want to do surveys. And what are the best tactics to open folks up to alternative methodologies? What have you experienced?
Yeah, that's typical. Even I get many client requests when they come and say, we want to do a survey without going to focus groups. We already have decided what is the method. And I just wanted to always ask always, tell me about the problem. Tell me a little bit more about the problem you're trying to solve. And so I try to walk them through the metrics, the information they need to solve that problem. And so after you have that conversation with them, then you start easing them in asking, can we really get that type of information through a survey? Can we really get that information through interview or qualitative? What type of decisions you're trying to make? So bring them back to the origin and the needs, and let them for a moment say, let's stop for a moment, don't talk about methods here, because that is so concrete that people want to talk. And that's why also I see a lot of that in the UX field. I always talk about tools and methods. And it's like, let's first figure out what is the problem. And then we have this big canopy of methods that we can pull from. And I have had I actually have lost business sometimes because people want me to do some things that I cannot defend. Like I had once a request to measure the effectiveness of an advertising campaign with one focus group. And I say, sorry, I can't do that. that's not right. And I cannot come back and defend it. My reputation is on the line here. I just I'm trying to meet the client's needs. And it's the same internal clients, the same thing. They come with their ideas of how it should be done. So but the thing is that you have to know, right? You have to know the pros and cons of the different methods to be able to have that conversation. If you don't know that, then it's going to be hard. You're going to go and follow whatever they say that they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So a question from someone that I'm assuming works for a large company, and I can relate to this a lot, is when all the different teams at your company use different methods of data collection, there aren't really best practices or clear templates or repositories. Are there any tools or things that you use to help with creating consistency and visibility to different teams' research?
You need humans, not tools. You need you need people who know research, who can coordinate things. You need some type of gatekeeping, because that's what happens. And with the idea of decentralization, democratization, there is also a risk of losing control, and first losing quality. Then if you are really tapping into, say, you have a big pool of customers that you can use for research, which make it easier and faster, you might burn them out by sending out things that are not good. It doesn't give a good impression. They are not coordinated. So you need coordination. It's not about tools. I mean, there are some what they call research libraries, repositories, where you can put it so it makes you can create this central library of research. But what happens many times, a company sometimes invests millions in those tools, and then nobody uses them, because we still need someone in the middle guiding the traffic and creating ways of pulling people, and also translating. When you put there as, okay, I did this research project, 100-page slide, who's going to read that? So you still need someone who can translate that, who can socialize that. So you need humans, you need human capital who understand research, who can translate it, who can make it, you can get this storytelling, right? And that's where sometimes companies think the technology is going to do it for them. It's not going to happen. And I have been in long enough in the industry that I have seen it back and forth. It goes technology, automation, then comes the people, then comes we are in the automation phase again. Everything is about tools. And then nobody's in the middle, trying to coordinate things and finding how are these different research efforts, initiative are supporting decisions at a strategic level, at the tactical level, there's a lot of overlap and wasted in time and resources. So it's about people, not tools.
Yeah, I think you have a good quotable there, humans over tools. I think I saw some head nods when you said that. That's pretty cool, Michaela. So next question is, for a UX researcher who, maybe has only mainly done, I guess, what is now considered UX research. I know you talked about the history a lot. What would you recommend to UX researchers in going beyond the optimal user experience in order to meet the business goals? So what market research tools or methods would you recommend UX researchers learn?
I would recommend to get some training in basic market research, so you can get familiar with all these different topics and methods that I have seen. Because once I know I throw a lot of categories and groupings and all that, but really it's a system that allows you to start thinking in a systematic way, starting by the business problem. That's hard. Sometimes it's very hard to have the business problem translate into a research problem. It needs practice. You need it, and then from there you have to think, what are the tools available? So if you started in UX research and the only thing you started with user interviews, that seems easy to do, which are not, but to do it well, they are. Jen did a great presentation last week. So all the things that you have to consider, right? It's not as easy as it sounds. A lot of work to do them well. And that's part of the in-depth interview. I mean, it has a whole field. In-depth interviews comes actually from the survey methodology. So they are linked. This is just a talking survey kind of. But if you start there, or you're starting usability testing and you're not exposed to quantitative research, I mean, in our field, in market research, and I have a master's, and I can see all my peers that started with me. There are some that went the qualitative route and some that went the quantitative route. There is a preference for certain methods because it has to do with personality. If you're a little more introvert, you tend to maybe go more to the quant. If you're a more social extrovert, you tend to go more to the qual. And if you are afraid of numbers, you also go to the qual. So this is a personality choice here, many times preference choices. But the goal there was you were forced to be exposed to everything. And so now I have partners. I have a colleague of mine that she has her own qualitative research agency. She focuses on that. And when she realizes that a client would benefit of doing quant, so she calls me and we partner, because even if she went to the program, she started the same. She has most of her experience has been honing on the qualitative research skills, was I have been doing a lot of quant for for a long time, although I do a lot of qual, but I have many years where I just did quant and they get very deep in quant studies and advanced stuff. And so we partner that way because we are aware. And I have talked to other qual people that say, well, they stop there. They say, I don't know what to recommend because I really don't know the other methods. So if you are new to the field, go and get basic. And that's what I'm saying when you hear me talking and you see my posts on LinkedIn and all that. I'm always talking about, I'm picky about the methodology and I'm picky about the terminology. The UX field loves to play with new words and new concepts. What happens is that when you start relabeling stuff, you lose the connection to the origin. You don't know where to go to learn more, because now you just call something else and then you don't find them in the literature, you don't find them in the history. So you have to be translating on the time. So what is this? What is that? Now it's called this way. And so what happens in market research, we have been kind of inclusive. So you have fields, but they are kind of connected. So there has a whole field, for example, in advertising research, very specialized, sometimes techniques to test advertising. But nobody thinking this is totally separate from market research. This is just one discipline. And in customer research is experience and satisfaction is also one area, but it's always connected to the other things. So what I'm trying, my mission is trying to tell the UX people, come to the family. This is a family here. You didn't know you have it. We're here. You know, all the sisters and brothers, we're here with this. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, go back to, you know, all these things that are already invented. So you avoid making all the mistakes we made at one point. And there's a lot of learning. There is still a lot going on research. The people, the companies that have the resources, the government does a lot of, for example, the census does a lot of work on survey methodology, asking questions, many academic. And so that's why I put that list of organizations, because they have some foundational classes, courses that give you to expose you. So go out and learn about the different methods. Pick up a market research textbook, like the basics. And so you will see it's going to help you orient yourself, even if you don't necessarily get into, you know, a particular area, but at least you know. That's what I'm saying. Be aware of what you don't know and can put it in your backlog and say, well, I know my method only answers these type of questions. And I know there are other methods that you can use. Let's call Michaela and maybe she can help me. Or let's call somebody else, maybe she can help, they can help me. And so that's the idea. So you learn and also collaborate.
I love that. It's, you know, very much like, if you don't know how to do it perfectly, at least get enough awareness so you can figure out the right person to help you do that thing.
Yeah, there is a lot of partnerships. Yeah, there is a lot of partnership in our industry. There's a lot of there's a whole ecosystem, a lot of bunch of services. Everybody kind of many times they specialize in one thing, but we all serve the same purpose.
Yeah. So kind of a related question, you know, you talked about the quant versus the qual, and a lot of times in companies, there's the UX department and the marketing department. And what advice would you give to someone who's kind of in that switch, or that a company where those are so separate, and how to triage? Like if a research question comes in, how do we know who it goes to, and, you know, what are some rules of thumb there?
That's why you need someone. You need a human there coordinating stuff. And so if you have, I go to lunch together, talk and exchange notes. ask questions, don't get territorial. What happens is that sometimes groups get territorial because they're afraid they're going to lose their job if they, give the other team some leadway. And you would be amazed how much you learn and how much you support each other and elevate. Because what happens with research is, first, when it comes to crisis, it's the first thing that goes out. Marketing goes out, research goes out, companies get very focused on sales, and research can wait, which is essentially the opposite. They should be doing research to kind of optimize the money they have to do that in times of crisis. But what you need is to, ideally, that's what I say in the beginning, is that sometimes the leadership doesn't see the connection between the groups. They need to be integrated. They need to be part of the same team, or at least they need to have, regular communication and more structured ways of exchanging. Okay, you can start with some type of repository of research, that's fine, but you still need people that can manage that and create. It was a presentation from, I think it was Microsoft, and at one of our conferences, the amount of work they put and resources in creating this repository of research that looked more like a library newsletter. It was just like you go there to learn, and it was a way to easily categorize and find insights and see what has been done, so you don't have to redo it. And each group will put their things there, but they had a group dedicated. It was not something like in my spare time during my break. No, a dedicated team to curate all that. And so there has to be a strategy for that. Otherwise, everybody will keep doing their own little things. Nobody's talking, and everybody's doing. At the end, it erodes, like I said, it erodes the value of research because it's not connected to business outcomes and business objectives.
Yeah. So kind of on the same note of, dare I say, territorialism, there was a question in the chat about, what is market sizing? Do market researchers do market sizing, or does a product manager do market sizing? And how does that work?
There you go. There you see that people don't know. And market sizing is actually part of the market research, the type of market research we do. And you tend to do that with market segmentation many times. So I have been involved in many big market segmentation studies to establish, first, many times, what are the needs in the market? And sometimes the company already has something in mind and they want to know what segments might be open to this particular product or this product portfolio. So that's what product is, one of the pillars of marketing. So a product manager is really not probably the specialist in market sizing. They need a market researcher that can help them do that. And the way when I was at Blockbuster, of course, we have the stores and we had the online business, and the online business had different pieces, and we have product managers for the different pieces, and they will take care of certain parts of the service, merchandising and the interface and all of that. And we will serve each of those groups. And so there was this weekly meeting, but we had a great general manager. He was addicted to research. He didn't want to make any decisions without research. He will say, you need to go and talk to Michaela. If we're going to do something, she knows the plan. So we have, every time is, what is the goal? Where are we going? What are we trying to do? And so I was like a traffic controller. So we plug it here, we plug it here. And I'm telling you, I have only a team or two. And I have, of course, I couldn't do everything, but I have my research partners that will help me. And I was just the one coordinating everything. But imagine that those research partners could be research groups in other parts of the organization. You still have to have some type of coordinating function that can help that. So market sizing is part of market research, yes.
Yep. Awesome. So I may put you on the spot a little here with my next question. And I know a lot of your presentation was like how UX methods and market methods come together and like it makes one big happy family, and how do we coordinate versus separate. But I think, there are a couple of questions in the chat, and sometimes I ask myself this too, but if you could summarize in a couple sentences, what is the main difference between UX research and market research in your mind?
The main difference right now, it has gone from the initial idea of user research that Don Norman was kind of proposing. It has come to very much a little more narrow product development, digital products, and very much focused on interaction usage. That's why there's so much. I would say there's a joke over there. There's somebody was a famous, is it Tuft? He said that the only companies that call their customer users are drug dealers and the computer companies, and then because it's just too much focus on the use and it gets a little narrow, right? And so that's the main difference now. It gets about micro interactions at the product level. It gets too tactical, and what the market research is a little more. It does a lot of tactical research too, because for example, if you get product development. So we go and do a concept testing. It's not at the interaction level yet. We go to the idea of the concept. What is the need that is feeling? And then you can go in the actual product testing. That's where the interaction comes. It could be physical or digital. But that's I think the UX has going the route of very much narrow a scope in trying to understand product use, while marketing research includes that, but it's everything else that is supporting the marketing function.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not a short answer, but
that I always say a couple sentences, so it just ends up being a couple paragraphs. So that's fine. If I wanted a couple sentences, I would just say a couple words.
Okay.
I'm just joking. So last question, I think all of us, or I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know for myself, I want to go do some learning on market research and some of the history and some of the basics. And if you could recommend one book or one class or one resource for folks on the call to do some learning, what would that be?
Actually, there is. I have been the history of market research is it's not really concise in anywhere. There is a lot of books, many different pieces. They talk about different pieces because we come also from many different areas, and so many disciplines are come and kind of coalesce around the field. And it started very early in the 18s, 19s, in advertising research, really. This is where it started. But I think one of the, if you can, well, you don't have it there, but I in the presentation, I talk about the Institute of Marketing Research. They have a principles of marketing research. It's pretty comprehensive, and you can do it online at your own pace. And it gives you really the basics of the whole field and expose you to all the fundamentals and the ideas, and then you can pick whatever you want to do. But that really, it's a concise, you can do it in a few, it's in your own pace, right? Unless that you want to go and do like a full master program like I did, that would be too long, too much work. There are what happens with boot camps and short classes is they just touch the surface. This is just very superficial, doesn't really give you a lot to work on. And so I recommend that if you're going to start somewhere, put a little time in that, get exposed to all the methods.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for your awesome presentation and staying on with us to answer some of the questions from the crowd. Please, everybody, again, give me another round of applause and thank you. And this has just been so great learning about related, but kind of adjacent field that we need to be more of a family. This has been wonderful.
I appreciate the opportunity because I'm always talking about this, and this is a great opportunity to talk to many. I really want us to be together because it will help us on the long run. I have seen the evolution in the market research fields. It has gone down in many areas because you have people who don't have the training or the background. They come to it, usually more on the marketing side, but still not necessarily with research background. So it really affects quality. And when you start trying to help business, you end up doing nothing. And so that's why they say, why do we need this? Why do we need market research? And it's just not going anywhere. So.
Well, thank you again.
Without a product, right? There is no marketing without a product. And in the old days, but if you go to companies that have very mature market research functions, all the CPG companies, Procter and Gamble, Unilever, all the, many of the big food companies, the products that you see, they have all that integrated, because you don't go and develop a product until you know there is a feasibility in the market, right? You don't go and say, oh, we have this feature, we have this thing, until you see that the customers want that, right? Because you don't go and develop because you can do it, or because you prototype it, it's easy and faster, and you spend time and money on testing stuff that is not relevant. You don't have a framework of the business. And so what I'm trying to always is just to tell UX people, don't get sucked into just the product, realm. Just try to connect it to the business problems, because that's where you're going to survive. Over time, if you don't do it, you're going to die. Because, and that's what happens, is that then the UX function gets, right now you see all those posting out there. They say they want to research, they really don't want any research. They want you to do, develop and design, and research is kind of the last thing, if we have time, right, kind of thing. And so that's unfortunately the reality, because they are not able to plug it and put it in the context of marketing.
And Michaela, I love what you said in your talk too about, eroding the value of design by doing things that don't actually impact the business. And the biggest ways that I've found to have influence from a UX perspective is to kind of speak your partner's language and understand their goals and needs. And even if the recommendation at the end of the day is UX research, like, also, it's not always the answer for every type of question, and saying like, my tools don't answer that, but I know someone's tools who does, and let's connect. And like, I think that goes a lot farther than just saying like, well, I can do a usability test or an interview or whatever. Like, I think pulling in the tool set, even if it's not you doing it, shows a lot of trust and just expertise, and just wanting to do right by the business versus only wanting to push your practice.
Learn a little bit about marketing and go back to the basics. So it will give you the perspective of it. Stop inventing new terms. That's what I'm always saying. Please stop coming up with new stuff, names for old stuff, because then you lose it. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what that means. You start reinventing the wheel all the time. Go back, read a little bit about marketing.
I totally agree. So I started in the physical design space, and we oftentimes, user experience has been around since the pyramids, honestly. It's just that I think of Nielsen and Norman, it's like they are marketing, their own flavor of things, but really, it started out in the physical space. But what I was trying to say is marketing, like as a product developer, we use a lot of the terminology from marketing. Marketing helps us come up with the conceptual design, and then that grows into the actual, development of the design.
Well, Jacob Nielsen is really complaining now about the inflation, the terminology inflation. They have seen that it's out of control.
Yes, it's crazy.
I see that
they're making a lot of money. That's basically what it is. They're making a lot of money.
I want to make sure we give some other folks too, since we don't have a ton of time here. But Janice, thank you for raising your hand in the chat. Love to pull you into the conversation.
Thank you. So I have a question about specifically the UX marketing department, the UX department for research, and also the marketing department, and how sometimes you mentioned that it could end up being that they're doing the same research, etc. So if you are just like another UX researcher on the UX team, do you step up in any way to like check in? For example, I'm just very new to this, and we're taught a lot about how always check in with your developers, like along your whole designing journey, check in with your developers. And that's just the best practice. Is there something like that to do with the marketing
I
department?
would strongly recommend go and make friends with the marketing, go with them on lunch, ask them what they're doing, asking how you can help. It's a relationship thing, particularly in companies where they are naturally separated and there is nobody at the top saying you need to work together. And companies that work is they force you have to be together. There is no point of points. But when that's not happening, you have to take the initiative and create that. Maybe you can create a lunch and learn, and then you can, do exchanges of things, information. And so you learn from each other and see what we're doing, what you're doing, how can we collaborate. Start with small things. Don't try, because people get territorial pretty quickly, so you're going to take my job. It's not that. It's just the idea is always how can we complement each other. I don't want to take over maybe I am interested in taking your job, but let's not talk about that now. Let's see what how can I help you so to do you better, you can help me. And so, yes, you take the initiative if you can and check with them what they're doing and how you can help.
Okay, but it's definitely like a personal, like you got to do that yourself in the company approach.
If the company is not aware of the need of that integration, unfortunately, so happens, the function of research advances if you have champions at the top. Even companies that have market research teams, we have been in market research always crying for, we need a seat at the table. Nobody's paying attention to us. Even if there is that, they sometimes totally ignore the research. And that's a big problem. That's why some companies die, like my beloved Blockbuster. I did all that research. I launched a super product, and then we got a new guy who didn't know about digital, who didn't believe in research, who the first thing he started in July, in September, he closed the online division. The only thing that was growing. And so what happened to Blockbuster? What is it?
No more.
Good.
Yeah, that's what happens when you ignore research.
Wow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, anyone else have a burning question?
I thought Justin had a good question in the chat.
Yeah, Justin,
Yeah, I was just gonna clarify. I work in tech, and I've been working in this industry for a while, and I've seen this trend at more engineering-led kind of companies where product managers are kind of talking to the customers all the time, and they're doing user research, and they're making strategy decisions and planning what we're going to build. And then a lot of times UX is kind of come in to kind of fix the problems that, could have been solved with, like, I guess, proper research and,
Justin,
but a lot of times
have we worked at the same companies?
that may very well be the case. I've noticed that it's at a few different tech companies that I've worked for. But yeah, somebody mentioned it, like a lot of times companies say they want to do UX research, but then there's not time for it. But then there's always time to fix the mistakes that we could have figured out before designing the wrong thing. So anyway, I'm not sure if you guys have any thoughts or knowledge to share on that.
chime in a little bit, Justin, then I would love for others. Like, I think I've had some similar experiences, but more often than not, I've actually had amazing product partners who wanted to learn about UX strategy and trusted me to do my thing. But then also at the same time, like, I've been teaching them things so that they can do it better on their own. So I actually, to Michaela's point earlier, like, it's better when we're doing things together and there's less territorialism and we're teaching and growing and everybody has knowledge. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if all of our product partners had knowledge of UX strategy and like knew how to call on people when they needed them? Like, less of that's my thing, do your thing, more of the like sharing is better and collaboration is better. And that's just my philosophy and my experience. I'm sure others have, different points of view.
I love that.
Totally agree.
Lauren, I agree with what you're saying. Not many not many organizations have a Michaela who's got such a holistic view of research. And so you'll have the product managers, you know, and they'll be doing research and that's their job. But a lot of times they will focus on really identifying through quantitative means, what's a product I can sell and how much can I sell it for? And then here UX is the product we're going to do. And then we have to go then and backfill with generative research to understand what is the problem we're trying to solve, and does the user want it solved, and how do we solve it then? And I think that Justin, the absolute right thing is for your UX researchers in the organization to partner as closely as they can with those product managers upstream when they're doing that research, to make sure they get that observational research, that contextual inquiry going, and really understand what is the problem that they're trying to solve, and are they even addressing a problem?
Yeah.
Right.
Totally agree. That's what we were discussing that in our group, that sometimes companies, they come up with a product, they spend a lot of time fixing the product, and nobody asks the question, do we really need this product? Do people really need the product, right? No, nobody, but that happens at more of the strategic level. And that's where marketing, if it's not integrated, it gets really hard, it gets really product based, and everybody's in their own little, lane trying to push their product.
Right. And it's solution first and the whole build trap kind of thing. Anyway, that's all great feedback. I appreciate that.
I was going to say, like, the other thing, that's maybe not a perfect answer, but sometimes if you come in and fix something really well and show your value, they'll ask you to come in earlier next time.
That's
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Justin.
That's great. Thank you, guys.
Maybe I just ask, what is your experience with the IT department? I mean, at least here in Denmark, the IT is run by Microsoft systems usually, and then the business people are kind of just users of the systems. So how do you have some guidance to how you make them talk to each other?
The marketing, let me just make sure I'm understanding your question, Bjarne. The marketing and the IT department, how do you get them to talk to each other?
Yeah, actually the IT and the whole business.
Yeah, good question. I think, again, have we been in the same business company before? Like,
That's true, of course, but it's always the problem between business and IT. And I went to IT University in Copenhagen, but I have a business degree. So it's always a discussion how you actually advance IT from a business side.
yeah, I think to what Michaela was talking about earlier, make some friends. Just kind of like reach out. I don't know how big your company is, or if there's somebody that's maybe you've seen copied on an email or something, reach out to them and say, hey, we work in the same place and I don't really know what you do. Would you like to get together for a little 15-minute virtual coffee? I don't know if you're back in the office or whatnot, and just start making some connections. People love to talk about themselves. They love to tell you what they do, even if you're not super interested, but make those connections, start making friends. It will go a long way.
Yeah. And I always also recommend to follow the money trail. Find where there are pain points, where they are feeling. Make friends with the finance guy if possible, but who holds the purse, and you go to that person and say, what is your problem? How can I help you? Can I save you money? Can you help you get a little bit of money? What is the low-hanging fruit that I can give you, like a little showcase here, a case study to how to help, and how when you coordinate those things, how that really, and once you have a couple of case studies and showcase the value of the research and how it connects to the money trail, then things like they kind of wake up and say, oh, maybe we should coordinate stuff. We should get people together and they should work together. And so follow the money if possible.
That's good advice.
Yeah, that's good advice. Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Well, we are past the 2-hour mark, so maybe save time for one more question and then we'll say goodnight, but make sure you follow our wonderful guest Michaela on all her social media and blogs and all of that, and keep your questions coming. But anyone have one last question to close us out for the night? No?
Well, I have a question, but I'm just trying to give other people a chance.
All
I've
right.
answered all your questions. That's great.
Great. All right, Dana, go for it. Close us out.
Yeah, we were having a chat earlier about service design and service blueprinting, and it seems like a lot of this, marketing research could really be useful in that area. So, and I noticed on one of your slides, you even listed blueprinting, but you didn't really talk to that as much. Yeah. So I wanted to hear more about that relationship.
Well, that's a new cool name from the UX field for an area that has to do with organization psychology and custom employee research. There is a whole area of employee research, employee engagement, how is that connected with the systems and how you organize companies. And so the blueprinting is trying to kind of align your customer interactions with your internal systems, but that's organizational psychology essentially at the bottom, right? And so we do that many times in connection to when the company has some type of, say, marketing problem issue, and they realize, usually it starts with, we need to reorganize around this new strategy that has to do with the products, how we're going to position ourselves. And that might, if they are radical and honest enough, they say, the way we organize here is not working. Let's go back and say internally, how can we do this? And so, but at the same time, there is a lot of, many companies, they have very good programs tracking customers, employee satisfaction, and how, particularly at the ones that have customer service. That's where the pain points many times are. And you try to align that with the marketing strategy too. And so that's now comes to the surface, like service design, but it's also has always been part of, it's an area that's very specialized, because when you do employee engagement studies, and now with the diversity, there's another angle to that, is diversity and inclusion. That's another layer of complexity to reorganization, talent acquisition, systems, and all that is combined. It's now become really an integral part of marketing, because there is a lot of about purpose marketing, right? When you want to attract talent, when you want to retain talent, it's not about, your product, you have to have representation, you have to have inclusion, and all that has to be reflected in your marketing, right? And it's not totally separate, right? That's another thing.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Again, going back to market research, it's just I feel like a little everything, all the path goes to Rome. How you say, is everything. No matter how I go, I always end up there. Well, sorry, I'm biased.
Thank you again, Michaela, for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you for you guys who have stayed on to have this chat. You guys are the real heroes. It's nice to be able to chat with you in a more informal way versus how we do it in the Q&A. So. Just so you know, we try to do this after every free monthly event. We'll have our networking, and then we'll do our happy hour here. So join us again if you thought this was fun, and hope to see you next one.
Thank you so much, Lo.
All right. Have a great night, guys.